welcome. I'm so glad you're here. This is Mompreneurs to Millionaires. Today we are talking about how to unblock your money blocks. So scary. This is always such a personal, I feel like such a personal journey for all of us, but I definitely feel like for me it is always sharing a little bit more than I'm comfortable with, but I think that's important because I think this pushes all of us out of our comfort zone, and I think we are in an age to start talking about money, right? Let's do it. Let's start talking about money. So I'm so glad you're here. So let me know if you are watching on the live, just say live below, or let me know if you're watching on the replay. Just say replay below. I'd love to know who comes in the day of and who's coming in afterwards. Awesome, so glad you're here. All right, so today we are going to talk about the 3 main money blocks that I see coming up for myself and for my clients. I think they are the main money blocks that hold all of us back. I know for myself that I have dealt with all 3 of these, and it's never a finished journey, right? I feel like unblocking your money blocks is something that will always come up, right? As soon as you meet another level, you're going to be hit with that fear again. So I think it's really important to keep revisiting our money blocks, right? And keep kind of aware of those fear and blocks that are kind of coming up. So we're going to talk about kind of the 3 main ones that I see the most often. And then we're going to talk about 3 ways to overcome your money blocks, right? That's why we're here. It's one thing. The first step is awareness, right? So the first step is to be aware of perhaps what's maybe holding you back, or what keeps coming up for you, or what patterns keep repeating themselves in your life. But then the next step is what to do about it, right? How to overcome, how to make changes, right? That's really what I think is all about. So I'm so glad you're here. Definitely stick around. Thanks so much to everyone who voted, right? Every Tuesday I put out a poll in my Facebook group, and I would love to hear from you. What is coming up for your business? What questions keep coming up that you're like, gosh, I wish I had a little bit of knowledge or a little bit of training around this? I would love to hear what that is for you. Feel free to share it below, or you can always reach out to me privately if you have a topic that you feel like is something you'd love to learn more about. I always put out a poll on the topics that I think are common, that I see with my clients, and that I like talking about. So those are the ones that I usually end up talking about, but feel free to always suggest a topic in those polls, or just vote on the one that is most prevalent for you. So I'd love to hear which topics you feel like are most important for your business. So thanks so much to everyone who voted. Feel free to vote every Tuesday. All right, so this is for go-getters, right? These videos, I always say, are for if you're here, you are ready to make moves in your business, right? You are ready to take action. You are ready to make moves. So with that, I always say, put on your abundance, and I'm going to start calling it a crown, right? Put on your abundance crown. And to me, this means thinking about, what does abundance mean for you, right? Abundance for me means that all things are possible, and you have the power to change, right? You have the power to change and make moves in your business, make moves in your life. You have the power to change, right? I think we are all capable of changing no matter what our age. And if your life is not exactly how you want it, right, you have the power to make some moves, make some changes. So that abundance crown to me says, I am open to hearing new ideas. I am open to listening and trying things out, right? That's what we're here. We're here to learn. We are here to share with each other. We are here to rise together, right? That's always my goal and mission in life, is to grow and bring everybody up with me, right? As we go, we're all gonna rise together. So I'm so glad you're here. So with that, I invite you to write down 2 things. So as you're listening to this video today, I think it is really great to download free material, to listen to some other free trainings. But I think in order to get the best information, in order to get the best result out of any free training, any free course, any free material, is to really try to take away something from it, right? So I invite you to write down 2 things, or 2 action items that you hear from today, that it's a new idea, maybe that hit differently, right? If it's something you hadn't thought of, if it's an aha moment, I invite you to write down 2 things that you take away from this video. You can share them, right? Share them with me below. You can send them to me privately, or just for your own purposes, right? Write down 2 things that you can really take away from this video, so that obviously it's not a waste of your time, right? But also, hopefully there would be at least 2 things that you learned from today that maybe you hadn't thought of before. right? And that's my goal, is to share with you things that I've learned that I think can be really helpful. So keep that in mind. All right, so if you are new here, I want to share a little bit about my background. I'm Christina. I have been in a business, some form or another, for really over a decade, right? I feel like I started my first little Etsy shop back in 2010, before babies. And I always say that that first lesson of, I thought if I put out my beautiful shop and I created a beautiful product, I thought people would just show up, right? I really thought if I built it, people would come. And that is such a hard lesson, right? If you feel like that has been you, if you felt like you built it, you set everything up, you did all the things you thought you were supposed to, and you were really just hoping people would show up, right? I don't know if any of you felt like that. I felt like that was such a hard lesson. So I learned it at the Etsy shop, and then years later, my husband and I started a brick and mortar bike shop. It was a little bike shop, coffee shop combo. And it was such a fun experience. I'm so glad it happened, and I'm so glad it's over. But I always say, again, I was hit with that lesson, right? If you build it, people don't just show up. You really have to go to where your audience is, right? You really have to, I believe, if you build it and people just show up, more power to you, right? That's amazing. That's probably lightning in a bottle, right? That you've captured. Because I think it takes a little bit more, right? As a business owner, I think it takes a little bit more to find your audience, define who they are, go where they are, and figure out how to get them in, right? So that's definitely the main lessons that I've learned in life. And after we had to close the bike shop, right? Unfortunately, lots of lessons learned. That's what I'm here to share with you. But after we closed the bike shop, I turned it into my mission, because I really wanted to help other business owners not to have to go through those things, right? Not to have to make the same mistakes I did, because I don't want you to have to go through those trials and tribulations, right? I want to share with you so that you don't make those same mistakes. So that's what I'm all about. I want to share with you. I really believe that if we all have access to the right knowledge, if we all have opportunity, and we can all build each other up, right? I think there's plenty of room in the market. There's certainly plenty of money in the world. I think we can all rise together. So that's what I'm here for. So with that money block, right? So as I mentioned, the bike shop, definitely that is a huge source of my fear for myself, right? I am constantly revisiting what happened, right? How did it close? Why did it close? What mistakes did we make? And at the end of the day, it's really just, it happened, right? And so I think for me, it is always it's going to happen again, right? So definitely I feel like with that, I struggle with that, but I feel like I have overcome a lot, because I remember that just because it happened, it's not going to happen again, right? Just because I have ideas doesn't mean they're going to fail. Right? So I think that is one of the patterns that I have noticed just overall with fear and limiting beliefs, is that whenever they pop up, if it's something, one, to be aware of, but two, if it's repeating, right, then it's definitely something you may want to think about looking deeper in, right? So whatever that looks like for you, we're going to talk about some ways to kind of overcome that. But I really think being aware of those repeating patterns. So if you feel like there are certain fears around money, if there are certain patterns around money that keep happening, definitely think about what could change, because here's the secret, right? Is that you do have the power to change. What if it all works out, right? We are not meant to struggle. We are not meant to not be happy and abundant, right? I really believe that the universe wants us all to be abundant, and I know it's possible for all of us, right? So definitely with that abundance crown, like I talked about, I think it's about being open to change. So the first step, I think, is noticing your patterns, noticing your thoughts, noticing your habits, but then being willing to address them and make some changes, right? I really think that's the number one tip. So one thing that I think I will share with you is, if any of you have heard of this, BTFAR, right? Has anyone heard of BTFAR, right? Beliefs lead to thoughts, which lead to feelings, and that leads to action. And that action leads us to results, right? So really starting with those beliefs, I feel like, is that first step. That if you're believing something is going to go wrong, right? If you're believing I'm going to make the same mistakes, if you're believing I'm going to fail, right? Then that leads to thoughts, right? If you believe you're going to fail, if you believe you're bad at money, if you believe there isn't enough money, that's going to lead to your thoughts about money, about fear. That's going to lead to your feelings around that, and that's going to affect your actions. And then, of course, your actions, we know, are going to lead to your results. So just kind of thinking of that, right? If that's something any of you are interested in, I'm certainly no expert at BTFAR, but if that is at least opening the door to realizing that our thoughts and our beliefs are leading to our actions, right? So it's not just about making different action, it's really about changing our beliefs around money, our beliefs around ourselves, our beliefs around whatever the past means for you, right? So I know for my own self, obviously that bike shop was such an important part of my life. Again, I always say it was such a heartbreak, such a heartache, such a challenge for us, but what an amazing lesson, right? I really take it as a lesson. I don't look at it as a failure because I'm so glad that it failed. I'm so glad that it happened because of where I'm at now, right? I'm in such a better place. I feel like it's such a better option for our family. It is such a more beautiful life than we could have ever imagined, right? Without the bike shop, unfortunately. There was a time when we thought it was everything, right? When we really thought this was it, this was our dream. We thought this would be we really wanted to make it happen. And we did make it happen for a couple of years, but it was not sustainable. So we learned, obviously, amazing things from there. But I really take it as not a failure. So I really believe that failure is there to teach us lessons. And like I said, I feel like I keep coming up with that lesson that I'm so worried that things are going to fail again, right? And how silly. Of course they're not. Just because it happened once doesn't mean it's going to happen again, right? So that's definitely a fear that I have overcome and I continue to be aware of because it comes up in different ways, right? So I think it's an important thing to just recognize your past, recognize what you're feeling, and just be aware. And then again, with that abundance crown mindset, coming up with ways that you can be open to change, right? I think that's really the biggest lesson or takeaway. So hopefully that resonated with some of you. All right, but getting back to our specific money blocks, right? I'm going to talk about, again, the 3 main money blocks that I think come up the most for my clients and for myself, and then the 3 best ways I think there are to overcome those money blocks. All right, so the first money block, right? Again, this is maybe going a little back to childhood. Some of you may resonate. I think we get so many messages from society, from perhaps our parents, from wherever, that being rich is bad. Do any of you feel like you've gotten that message? That I heard this in a number of different ways. My dad would always say, yuppies are pricks. I don't know if anybody else heard that, but I feel like we see it in movies, right? That the rich person is mean. It's especially if it's a rich woman, she has to learn some lesson that's going to be hard for her, right? We don't see a lot of examples, I don't think, of well-adjusted, helpful, happy, rich people, right? Unfortunately, who feels like that? If you can think of any movies, right, especially right now around Christmas time, right? I think there are lots of beautiful movies that are great at teaching us lessons, but I feel like they are bad at giving a clear view of what a wealthy, well-adjusted, happy woman especially, but person who is, helping the world and just living a great life, right? There's no movies about, just happy, wealthy women, I don't think. But I would love to hear. If you've come across one, I would love to see. But I definitely think there are messages that we are getting in movies and society and pictures is that having more money is bad. And I feel like this comes across in greed, right? I feel like, and just the other day, right? I feel like with my clients, I often help them through this process because many of my clients, I hear this a lot, that they say, well, I don't want to raise my prices because I don't want to make too much money. What? Why not? Right? Why would you not want to make more money? Is that from a fear of, well, I don't want to be greedy, right? I'm not greedy. I'm not like that. Okay, that's great, right? And so I really have to dial it back. And of course, coming from a place of love, that I feel like that stems from a fear of being rich is bad, right? Of course. Who wouldn't want more money, right? Money in the hands of good people. I think more good women wanting to do good work in the world. what could be better, right? What could be wrong about that? So I really think if you feel like that's something that comes up for you, that you feel like, well, I don't want to be too rich, right? I don't want too much money. I don't know if that comes up for you, but I feel like we heard those messages growing up, right? That wealthy people, I don't want to be too wealthy. I don't want to be that wealthy, right? Because those people are bad, or those people are greedy, or I don't want to be gluttonous, right? I don't want to have too much, or something like that. So definitely think about if that resonates with any of you, that if you feel like that comes up in different ways in your own life, because I think the other side of it is that true, right? I think whenever you have different beliefs, especially around money, I think it's important to, one, notice them, but also really think about, is this true? Is this story that I'm telling myself really true? Is this fictional movie that I keep picturing, right, about a rich person being a terrible person, is that true, right? Sure, there are some not nice rich people. Of course, there are some not nice poor people, right? By all means. There are some not nice, just generic people in the world, right? But there are plenty of good people. There are plenty of good rich people. There are plenty of good, not so rich people. I think there are good people, and you absolutely can be a very wealthy and effective and helpful person, right? Woman of the world. I think money in the hands of more good people can do more good. So I don't know if that resonates with any of you. I would love to hear if you feel like that is something you heard growing up, if you feel like being rich is bad, if you feel like that is holding you back from raising your prices and selling your offers, right? Because what happens is if we put that out into the world, that we say being rich is bad, or if somewhere in our subconscious we believe that being rich is bad, or I don't want to be too greedy, or I don't want to make too much money, that comes across as I don't want to share what I offer, or I don't want to be salesy, I don't want to be pushy, right? And I get it. There's a fine. I always talk about being salesy with many of my clients. I feel like sales is a mindset, and there are sales skills that many of us have not been taught, right? I really think that is something. There are certain ways that you can, and there's an aligned place for you specifically. And that's what I always work on with my coaching clients one-on-one, is that we work on what sales looks like for you, because it's got to come from an aligned place, right? It really has to come from a place that you feel good about, but also understanding whatever those money blocks that you grew up with, that perhaps if that's coming out in the way that you're selling, then there may be a place for you to maybe just think about things differently, right? Because I really think that is what can affect your sales. So that's number one, right? Is being rich is bad, and I don't think it's true. So just asking yourself, is this really true? Do I have any examples of good people doing good things that are really rich, right? Of course, there are plenty of examples of great people with a lot of money doing great things. They might not make the news, right? But they are out there for sure. So definitely something to think about. Is this true? All right. Number 2, money block. I feel like this is something many of us struggle with, right? I know I have had to overcome this. I continue to overcome this, is that there is never enough, right? I feel like this is true lack mentality. If you feel like there's never enough, or, my competition is doing this, or I can't sell this because there's too many people doing it, the market is saturated, or if you just feel like there's never enough money, there's always another bill to pay, there's always, right, another expense coming up. Like just when I got ahead, then the brakes fail, or the tires need, replaced, or something like that, right? If you feel like that has ever come up for you, I feel like this, again, is very personal, right? But I feel like this comes up for a lot of us, is that there's never enough money in the world. And I really believe that, comes from a place of fear. That is really coming from that lack mentality, when abundance really means that there's plenty to go around, right? The market is huge. There are lots of ways to make money. There are lots of people to buy lots of things, right? There's plenty of money around in the world. So really coming from a place of, I would say trusting, right? And that again comes from a place of just knowing and believing that abundance is out there. Abundance is possible, right? Because if that keeps coming up for you, or if you keep telling yourself there's never enough, there's probably never going to be enough, right? So it really stems from just the belief, I think, going back to that BTFAR, If you believe there's never enough, that's going to lead to your thoughts subconsciously, right? And probably that's going to change your feelings and your actions and your results. So based on that belief that maybe there's never enough. So I really think that is definitely one to really be thinking about, and to really change that into excess. What if excess is good, right? What if it's okay to have more than enough money? Wouldn't that be okay? Of course that's okay. Of course, right? Of course that's what we all strive for, right? It's okay to have excess. I really think that is something to change that mindset, is that it's okay to be abundant. It is okay to have more than enough money, right? That is really, I think, the root of so much of our heartache and trials and right, hardships. I really think, and especially in, perhaps in this time, I feel like there's always, the economy, the market is never going to be perfect. I feel like there's always something for someone to say bad about the market or the economy. But what if it isn't, right? What if it's not up to just a few guys in Washington, right? What if it is, what if it's okay to be abundant? What if it's possible to be abundant in any market, in any economy, right? Because the belief that it's a bad market, it's a bad economy, oh, people aren't buying because it's a bad economy, right? I hear this a lot too. I have a couple of clients who have said this, well, I can't raise my prices right now because it's a bad economy. There are people who are going to pay any level, right? There are people making tens of thousands of dollars on one coaching package, right? There are lots of possibilities. So by just saying that, I don't want to raise my prices, or people aren't buying because of the economy, I just don't think that's true, right? I think there are ways to make money in absolutely every economy. There are ways to make money. And it really stems from your belief, right? I really believe that it all starts with your belief, because that's what leads to your feelings, your thoughts, your actions, and your results. So definitely thinking about if that's a money block that comes up for you, right? If you feel like there's never enough, or you're afraid to raise your prices, or the economy is bad, right? I feel like those are all kind of related to that lack mentality. There's more room, right? People are making money whenever the economy is bad or good, right? People are making money. You can too. All right. So that's number 2. Number 3, this is our last main money block, and I feel like this is a big one, is that spending, and I think this is in a lot of money habit type things. I've been studying a lot of money books. I've been studying a lot of budgeting books, and I feel like there is a lack mentality that tells you spending is bad. Does anyone feel like they've been told spending is bad? I get it, right? There's a part where it's really important to stay within your means, of course, right? This is not financial advice. Obviously, seek a financial professional. I am not a financial professional, but I don't think spending is bad, right? In fact, I think that really comes from also a belief that maybe if spending is bad and you are spending, it makes you think you are bad at money, right? Have you told yourself you are bad at money, right? For years, I told myself, well, I must be bad at money. If I haven't figured, if I'm spending, if I want to spend, I must be bad at money, right? And I just don't think that's true. If you are telling yourself you are bad at money, you are going to be continually bad at money, right? Who wants to be bad at money? I don't think any of us do. So definitely think about if that's a belief you're telling yourself. Because if you think spending is bad, then and you spend money, right? To what end? To what end is spending bad, right? We have to pay bills, we have to buy things. And if we come at it from that perspective as I have to spend money, I have to buy groceries, that is already kind of putting out that lack mentality, right? I heard a really great talk the other day. If any of you know Lenka Lutanska, right? She is the author of one of the books we read in book club. She wrote Energetic Selling, which I think is a really great book if any of you are interested. That was a great book for book club. But she has a really great talk where she talked about her kind of weird money habits. And she said something that I thought was so powerful. She said when she spends, she thinks about it more as it is birthing, multiplying, right? It is birthing more money. So when she's spending, she is really envisioning that she's putting it out into the world and it's going to come back to her tenfold. right? Isn't that a different place to think about if it's coming from your heart? You're spending intentionally, right? You want this beautiful thing. You want to pay this bill because it gives you, power and water and whatever that looks like for you, right? Whatever you're spending money on, spending is not bad, right? Sure, if you're getting into trouble and, whatever, spending I think is very, personal, and whatever your spending habits are, certainly, I'm not saying go blow it all, but I think just coming from an energetic difference of spending is going to multiply. So I'm putting it out into the world and I'm getting in that flow, right? And so I just loved her idea of that from Lenka Lutanska, that if you spend from a place of I'm putting this out into the world, I'm happy to spend this, and it will come back to me tenfold. Because if you're spending from a place of I gotta pay this bill, right? That feels way more like lack mentality and like I'm not sure if I can afford this, or right? But if you're coming from a place of no, this is really good for my business, for my health, for my family, for my house, for myself, right? If you're spending from a place of from your heart that this is very intentional and it's going to come back tenfold, right? I think that is a whole mindset shift. So I really love that idea because it really changes the idea that spending is bad and that you're bad at money. You're not bad at money, right? You're able to afford the things that you're able to afford. You're living your life the way you want to. You are not bad at money. Of course, we could all do so much more with more resources, right? But believing you're bad at money is going to make you bad at money, right? I really think that's true. So let me know, right, if that resonates with any of you. But definitely check out Lenka if you haven't before. But I really think that is more about the lies that we tell ourselves, right? I've heard this too, that whenever fear comes up, it is based on a story that we told ourselves, and it's usually a story that is not true, right? It's a lie that we have told ourselves and we believe. So thinking about the stories that you tell yourself in a little bit different way, what if it's different? What if it's not true, right? Even if you believe that it's true, if you really believe, no, I've always been bad at money, I'm not good at money. What if it's not true, right? You know how to go to the store and pay for things, right? That does not mean you are bad at money. It means there's a possibility for you to make some changes, right? Absolutely. But it does not mean you are bad at money. In fact, you have a really great way of spending in a place where a lot of people might feel a little more hesitant to spend, right? So, there are different sides to every coin, but I really think it stems from a belief of fear, and that will lead to your actions and your results. So really thinking about noticing those beliefs that you're telling yourself and then turning that into what actions or what stories can I change so that I get different actions and different results. So something to think about for sure, right? So those are definitely the three main money blocks that I think come up the most. So definitely think about if this comes up for you. I think number one, money is bad, or being rich is bad, or greedy, right? I hear this a lot. I don't want to raise my prices. I don't want to be too greedy. I don't want to make too much money, right? That feels a little bit crazy. Number two, there's never enough. That is true lack mentality, right? If there's never enough, there's never going to be enough, right? If you believe there's never enough, you will continually experience never enough. What if excess is okay? What if I have a cushion? What if there's more than enough? What if, right? Wouldn't it be better to live in a state of what if it's a possibility, right? Abundance is all about anything is possible, right? And being able to change the way you look at things and your beliefs about yourself, I think can definitely change your results and change your actions. And then number three is that spending is bad, or that you are bad at money, right? You are not bad at money. You are able to keep your household afloat, right? You are able to function in this world, pay taxes, right? All of those things. You are not bad at money. Spending is not bad. I don't think spending is bad. In fact, I think similar to dieting, right? I think we've talked about this, that if dieting feels restrictive, right, you're not going to be able to sustain that diet, weight loss lifestyle, right? It's really about changing your lifestyle in a sustainable way. The same goes for money, right? If you come at it from a place of restriction, it is going to be really hard, because more often than not, if you restrict your money habits, if you restrict your spending, you're gonna splurge, right? And you're going to blow it and you're going to say whatever, right? That is the same for money. I really believe that it is not about restriction, right? It is about coming from an energetic place of I am intentionally spending on the things that feel good to my life and that are aligned with who I am. And what Lenka says is aligned with who I am becoming, right? Really think about what your spending habits are saying about the person you want to become, right? Because you really have to believe it before, right? She always says you have to believe it before you see it. And I think that is so true. Coming into a place of feeling before we can actually receive. I really think that is, I think that's the secret of the universe. So anyway, I'd love to hear if that resonates. All right, so now the 3 things to overcome, the 3 ways best ways to overcome and get insight into all of these money blocks, right? And of course there are more, right? Every individual is different. We all have different money blocks and money history and money hardships, right? Past. We all have different money pasts. So this may look different for you, right? So definitely think about what stories or past experiences are affecting your beliefs, thoughts, actions, results, and how that's coming up for you. But I think the best way to really, it's not an overnight fix. I feel like it's a journey. Like I said, for the last 9 years since the bike shop closed, right? I have been overcoming this fear. I feel like every single day, right? It comes up in different ways, but I always think, oh, it's from the bike shop, right? That's why I'm worried about that. It's from the bike shop. I'm worried it's going to happen again. So just recognizing it gives me so much peace, right? I really think that's important. But the 3 most helpful ways, I think, to overcome money blocks, the first one I definitely think is books, right? I love our book club. I'm excited to put out all the books that we read this year. I think that'll be a really fun list. So if any of you are interested in that, watch for that. But I definitely think reading books that light you up, that give you a different perspective. And if you're not a reader, I am not a reader by any means, right? I thought the idea of setting a goal, I set a goal for myself of 25 books this year, and I just hit 25. I'm so excited. But I never thought that I could. And the only way that I could is by Audible, right? So whether you still think that's reading or not, but I listen to books, and that is how I am able to read books, right? I'm not a reader by any means, but I love listening to books because I can do it while I'm doing other stuff, or and it really helps me work on my listening skills. So I definitely think books is the #1 way that I have found that has helped change my money blocks in so many different ways. Unblock my money blocks, right? Because I've really gotten different perspectives from different people who have done it, right? Different people who have experiences that they want to share. And I just think that's really helpful. Good, bad, or whatnot, right? What I love about books is you can take what you want, you can leave the rest, right? Of course. So books I think is #1. #2, I think this has been a huge shift in my world this past year, is meditation. I have incorporated a daily meditation practice, which I think is so important. It has really helped me dive into what my fears really are, what they're really meaning, why they're coming up. Often I think some of those fears and limiting beliefs stem from that fear of failure or that comparison, right? As business owners, I think as women, we often compare ourselves to, we're bombarded with things on social media every day. And so with that comes a lot of that fear of, oh, well, she's doing it this way. Maybe I'm not, right? Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm bad at this, right? And you're not. Everyone has a place in this world. You have a message that is really important, and we got to get that out there, right? More people need to be impacted by your story, your perspective, your message. More people need to hear it, for sure. If you have a drive to get your message out there, there's a reason, right? Somebody needs your message, for sure. So meditation really helps, I think, get into those quiet places of your own body, of your own mind, to really dive into, okay, when I cut out all the noise, when I cut out all the other stuff, what is really the core of who I am? What do I want to do? What this belief really means? And what am I so stressed out about, right? I think it is a really great stress reducer and clarity of your mind. So I really think that is the second thing that is really helpful, I think, to overcome any type of fear, but especially money blocks, to really be thinking about, okay, why does this keep coming up? Why, what am I afraid? why don't I want to change my prices? Why don't I want to, why am I not making more money? Why, how is this affecting? So I think meditation is a really helpful way. And number 3, I think, is affirmations, right? Sometimes they may sound a little bit cheesy, but I think it's really important to think about what you want to tell yourself, right? So even if you don't believe it yet, but telling yourself something that you want to believe, right? I want to believe that I'm good at money. I want to believe that abundance is possible. I want to believe that I have the power to change, right? Those are some things that even if they don't quite feel aligned with you yet, I think it's important to start, right? Start changing the way you talk to yourself, because you're not realizing in your subconscious, that's what you're telling yourself every day, right? If in the back of your mind, you're telling yourself, oh, this is gonna fail. You're not good at money, so good luck with that, right? There's never enough, right? You don't want to be too greedy, right? Oh, don't want too much. Don't be greedy, right? So if those are some things you're telling yourself that you might not even know that you're telling yourself, I think affirmations is the best way to kind of start changing that dialogue with yourself, because it's really important to get clear on what you want to be telling yourself, right? I think that's really important. So getting the affirmations that feel good to you, and right, an affirmation can be anything. It doesn't have to be a set of 5 things, or it doesn't have to be 20 affirmations, right? It could just start with one thing you want to tell yourself every single day. Try waking up, right, with that. I think gratitude is a great part of affirmations, being grateful for what you have in your life. I think that's definitely one of the most helpful things around money, right, is being grateful for what you currently have, for sure. But affirmations really help you get there. So by having a set, like, thank you for, the abundance that I already have in my life, and really believing that and leaning into that every single day, I think is a really great start, right? So definitely coming up with the affirmations that you want to tell yourself, and then really working on believing and feeling those, I think is really the steps that I think are really helpful. So hopefully those are helpful to you, but those I think are the best, the 3 things that have really helped me overcome so many money blocks. And I really think it's helpful to my clients as well, right? We definitely work on a lot of this mindset around sales, because with business, right, I think that is so important to really be thinking about what keeps coming up and what is holding me back from closing sales. What is it? Is it my money beliefs, right? Is it my beliefs around making money, that making money has to be hard, right? That I'm not good at money? Then the universe may not give you more money, right? If you keep telling yourself I'm not good at money, the universe is not going to send money that way, right? So just getting different ideas, I think, is really the first step, and being aware of your own thoughts, I think, is the biggest thing that has helped me, for sure. And that's something I work on with my clients all the time, this mindset around sales, because I think it's hard being an entrepreneur, being a one-woman show, right, up against the world. I think the world is stacked against us, right? And I really think we are taught so many messages about powerful women, that are not great people. I think, and that's not true. I think there are so many messages around making more money, especially as a woman. And I think about sales, right? I think there are so many messages we hear about sales women. I don't know about you, right? I feel like I was often told women aren't good at sales, which I just think is completely not true. I think women are beautiful at sales. We just don't want to be salesy. Nobody wants to be salesy. Nobody wants to be pushy. So we can really work together on some mindset, I think, around sales and some sales skills, right? I really think it's about learning new skills and new strategies to really come from a place that is aligned for you and that works, right? Getting an effective strategy, I think, is the most important thing for your business. And if you are not getting results, right, I think it is not about doing more of that thing, right? I really think if you, especially this year, as you reflect on the year and you feel like you want to make more money in your business, you want to get more leads every single day, you want to really make moves in your business, definitely I would love to talk about making sure that you have the right systems in place to make that happen. And I'm all about building sexy systems, because if it's not sexy and it's not working, you're not going to do it, right? If it's not lighting you up and it's not aligned with who you are, and if it's not making you feel good every day, then you're not going to be consistent, right? You're not going to do that system. So it's about building a system that works for you. And I think the best way to do that, right, is with coaching. I really think coaches, it's not about learning a specific strategy, although I can definitely teach you a specific strategy that I know works, but I really think it is about incorporating it into your business specifically, right? You can learn all the free material in the world, but in order to apply it to your business, I think that's what really takes an accountability partner. I think that's what it takes really to have a partner cheering in your corner, keeping you focused on what you need to do every single day to get to your goals. I really think that's what a coach is there for, is to help you implement the strategy into your business and what that looks like for you from an aligned place, right? And building that system that feels good to you so that you can show up every day and be your true self and get your message out to the world. I really think that's what it's about, and that's what's important. So I think that is it for today. I would love to hear if this resonates, right? I always feel like it is a little bit scary, a little bit vulnerable talking about money blocks, but I think it's so important, and I'm all for women talking more about money. I think we need to be in rooms with each other. I think we need to be in places where we can talk freely about money, and I think that is the future. I really think that is how we are all going to rise together and get more money in the hands of good people, putting it out in the world and giving back and wanting to share our wealth with everyone. I really think that is what the future holds. So I'm so excited. Let me know what your 2 action items were today. I would love to hear below if you wrote down 2 things that were an aha moment, were something new you hadn't thought of. I would love to hear what that looks like for you. Awesome. Thanks so much for hanging around with